The Patterson Foundation
strengthens people, organizations, and communities by focusing on issues that address mutual aspirations, foster wide participation, and encourage learning and sharing.
Jake Saur, welcome to the TPF Beyond podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So to kind of lay the ground as we kick off here, this is the TPF Beyond podcast focused on digital access for all. And this is really a follow-up to the Digital Access for All Symposium, or Suncoast Connect Symposium, which we had yesterday and the night before. So super excited to have you here. Thanks for being in town.
Yeah, this is awesome, and the symposium was great yesterday. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So reflecting back on the last couple of days, what was your top takeaway from the symposium?
It was interesting. I think that I like that the symposium, it did have a focus on AI, and listening and interacting with the crowd. I felt that there's still a lot of work to do in that space, as well as just digital technology, in general. But it did turn a little AI focused, and listening to the community members that were there, I felt like they have a lot of questions, and there's still a lot more to be learned, and that's understandable, being that AI is sort of new to coming. It's in getting into its running stage, I would say. So I felt like the conversations around that were good. It got people focused on the upcoming technology that is going to be affecting everyday people's lives and the workforce. Yeah.
So your big takeaway was really like there was this focus on AI and that people are grappling with it.
Yes.
And the impacts it's going to have. And I've been to a number of conferences over the last number of months, and they seem to be very AI heavy. Do you feel like that focus at this conference and the ones that I'm referencing, is that a good focus? Is that important, or is it an over focus? Like, how are you thinking about that?
No, I think that's right on target. I think AI and how it interacts with everybody, both professionally and in your everyday lives, whether you like it or not, it's coming. We're just scratching the surface of what that will mean for both, public and private in your everyday life. So I think there needs to be more conversation about that and how that works and where it fits in, what its best uses are, and of course the dangers that come along with it.
Absolutely. Let's back up a moment, just because our audience might not know who you are. So could you just tell us a little bit about who you are, and also just what brought you to the symposium in the first place?
Yeah. So I grew up actually in Bradenton, Florida, born and raised. I started as a paramedic for Manatee County government back in 2000, and worked my way up through the public safety ranks within Manatee County government. Was a paramedic for about 15 years, and then moved over to the 911 center, took over the 911 center and ran that for a couple of years, and then eventually was the public safety director, and worked as the public safety director for Manatee County government for about 23 years. And now I moved to Arlington, Virginia, and I'm the ECC Administrator for Arlington County government in Virginia, and run their 911 center and emergency management.
Amazing. So you came down here in large part because you're doing some really innovative work in Arlington County, or with AI, technology, 911, public safety. Can you talk a little bit about what you shared about yesterday?
Yeah, so in Arlington, it's set up a little different than I would say this community's 911 centers are, but it's just a different demographic. But in our 911 center, we take about 3 times as many non-emergency calls as we do emergency calls. And like every government across the nation, we are strapped for people. And it takes people to answer those non-emergency calls. We don't have the luxury of a 311 call center like, let's say, Manatee County has. And all the calls coming into Arlington County government kind of funnel through the 911 center. So the problem there is, if the 911 telecommunicator is on a non-emergency call, they are not freed up to take an emergency call. So we were looking for ways to reduce that non-emergency call load, and one of the things that popped up to mind was AI, and how can we get AI to assist people calling the government and getting them the information they need very quickly. So we did find a solution for that, and I think we were going to test it, and we did test it. And we were going to test it and see how it did, and if it was going to be fruitful for us. And it's proven its strength for us, definitely.
Yeah. How did you? Because not every government leader or government employee or local government entity is sort of aware of opportunities to optimize through artificial intelligence or thinks, okay, I'm actually going to go out and pursue this. Mm-hmm. How did you and your team even get started? You recognize the opportunity and then you go. Walk me through that.
Well, I think it's wash, rinse, repeat. I think I've been doing that through my career. When I was here at Manatee County, we were one of the first to really put our technology infrastructure into the cloud. And that offered us a lot of new opportunities, moving that technology from servers in the back room to servers in the cloud. We could then access all that information anywhere. We did not have to be in the 911 center, didn't have to be in the building. So, I kind of take that model and apply it to anything else that we move forward with. And same kind of happened with AI in Arlington. We have the luxury in Arlington of being the home of Amazon's HQ2, their second headquarters, and it's real close to our office. And just through conversations, they are big in the community there, obviously, and just through some conversations, we brought up some problems we were having, and they said we might have a solution to that. So that kind of sparked the conversation for sure.
Yeah. So I was in your session yesterday, and I was blown away by this story and what the collaborations looked like with Amazon. And one of my questions leading up to today was to sort of ask you, what's the secret sauce to being able to do this? And it sounds like the Amazon relationship in part might be part of that secret sauce. But could you speak a little bit to maybe both of those, what the Amazon relationship, but also the secret sauce to making this kind of thing happen?
Yeah, certainly. And I think Amazon being in our community helps. But I don't think that is a key to anything when you're trying to get it to do these types of things. So what I have found is either startups or businesses that focus in one area, but they have the ability to assist in a different area, are very eager to work with somebody to get into that space. And that space is where I like to live. It's sort of like on the bleeding edge. And I think the hardest part of that is finding the company to do what you need it to do. And if you know that they can, then you say, I'm interested in being one of the first to get into that space, and they want to work with you. And oftentimes that comes at a reduced cost because they're building out their system at the same time they're helping you. It comes with a little bit more work. With Amazon, it was they had a call center solution, but it was more geared towards private sector and high volume calls. Well, a 911 center, although it takes around 400,000 or 500,000 calls a year, that's really not the kind of high volume that they're used to. And it's also very geared towards a government setup. Lots of things could go wrong. Anyway, what they had to do was build out and kind of scale it for a 911 center. And they were eager to do that. And they knew working with us, we'd help them build that out. And then they had a product that they could bring to the public safety sector as well. But that goes for, anything you're talking about. If you realize that somebody is out there doing something, but it's not necessarily geared for your industry, talk to them and see if they're interested. And if they are, I think the secret sauce is partnering. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're a government, public-private partnerships really work well in that type of situation.
So tell me more about the art of the public-private partnership. Right? Yeah. It's one thing to say, all right, we have this company that's willing to pilot this thing with us, and we want to do it. It's another thing to think through what's the uniqueness of your context and the government, having the capacity to work with them, et cetera, et cetera. Walk me through the art of this.
Well, it takes a lot of key components, I would say. First, you have to be, if you're, in the government, you have to have an atmosphere where the government's willing to do that. Some governments just not. Local governments, some are, some aren't. I grew up in a government in Manatee County that loved public-private partnerships, so I kind of cut my teeth on that. So once you get that down and the willingness, obviously there's some constraints on how you're going to spend the money and things, but I've always found that the private businesses are willing or eager to work with governments because the government, in my opinion, kind of is the top of the class. If you look at local governments, they usually are, they're running their business or they're running the government at a very fine line of this is the rules and this is how we do it. So when a business gets into that type of space and is looking to help government, when they build something out, such as Amazon AI, or they're building something to help the government, it also helps them because then they can say, we're in Manatee County, or we're working with Arlington County government, and that is usually an eager partnership between both of us. That I always feel that it makes everybody happy. The community likes it a lot. Certainly, you're helping the community with a private business, and they're helping you with a problem you have. So it works out both ways.
Yeah. Well, one of the sayings we have, or one of the kind of reflective and planning tools we have at the Patterson Foundation is what we call LWRCC, which is leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture. The idea is that when you're looking to partner, it's important that you're at least reflect on alignment when it comes to leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture. And I'm hearing is that if you're going to be doing a public-private partnership internally, you have to have the leadership for it. You got to be willing, you got to be ready, you got to have the capacity to engage in the culture around it. And same thing goes with the private business that you're going to be collaborating with. And once you have that, then you can get going.
So what I'm hearing is you had me explain all that, and the Patterson Foundation already has the secret sauce to that. But I couldn't have said that any better. Absolutely.
Well, easier said than done, right? I mean,
it can be.
So you've got the LWRCC,
right? And
then you got to do it. So how long did it take to build out something like this? And are you still building it out?
It will never be done being built out. Yeah. As it goes through its iterations, as the community evolves and changes, we fine tweak the AI behind the answering of those calls to better serve the community. But the initial setup was surprisingly fast. Much like anything Amazon does, it's kind of geared towards the homeowner, and we kind of took that model for their setup and used it, answering our non-emergency calls. And so they said, the first thing they said is you can't break it, but here it is. Here's how you set up some algorithms with it. And, you can tune it to say anything you'd like when we answer the phone. And, but it's all intuitive things, much like running an iPhone. So I thought that it was very, very easy. The hardest part is, talking back to the LWRCC, making sure your leadership's on board, making sure their leadership's on board. Are we both willing to get into this partnership, and what's it going to look like? And one of the things I always like to say when I'm working with those types of partnerships is we're going to test it. It's going to be a pilot. Governments love pilots, and that means that we're not really set in concrete that we're going to go with this, but we'd like to give it a try. And if it doesn't work out for us, we're out the door, which sounds very bad. But it makes the government comfortable. It makes the partnership comfortable. And I would say 99 times out of 100, the partnership actually grows. And it's a benefit for both.
Yeah. So key to a pilot is having clear objectives of what you're trying to accomplish, and then really strong systems to collect data and systems to continuously improve using that data. What did that look like for you all?
I'm glad you brought up data. One of the things Amazon is not great at is data. They didn't have a lot of data on the back end for this type of system. They mainly used it for their own purposes, and they were capturing data different ways. But in the government, data is very important. We want to show that this is working, and how can we improve it? It's constant review of data, and they weren't too great at that. So they did have to build that further out. But again, that partnership of, hey, you're now working with the government, and we need to see this type of data to make sure that it's working. And if it's not working, why not? To keep this pilot going. So then they realized, okay, we can build that on the back end. So that took a little bit, but they do have it, and that's exactly what partnerships are for.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say Amazon's not good at data, and I'm like, well, they know exactly what I want all the time. So what kind of data are you talking about?
They're good at their own data, okay. Absolutely. We wanted to see if it couldn't answer the phone call or if it answered the phone call and it couldn't answer their question or get them to the right information, why did it send it back into us? What more information did we need to put into the system so that it could answer those questions? We wanted to see how many calls is it taking? How many calls could it not handle? Anything that you would put into a Power BI, we kind of wanted to see. How long does it take you to answer the phone call? How long do these calls last? All of that back-end data they have, it wasn't readily presentable to the user. And that's what we needed to see.
Yeah. So if I'm the listener of this podcast at this point, I'm like, okay, but like, what actually is this?
Yeah.
I think you kind of infer from the conversation, right? It's like using artificial intelligence to answer and handle non-emergency phone calls for your county. Mm-hmm. But can you walk just a little bit through, what does this actually look like? And then maybe a little later in the conversation, we could talk about how it's evolving and what the impact has been so far.
Yeah. So the non-emergency phone calls that come into a 911 center is someone's dialing a 10-digit phone number. So whatever that may be for that non-emergency call center. And a lot of times it rings into the 911 center. And we forever have employed part-time firefighters and police officers off duty to answer those non-emergency calls. Think of it as a switchboard for the government. So if you're calling to find out where your car got towed, or what streets are closed, or I need to report a tree down after a storm, all of that typically rings into a 911 center at some point. That's what we call non-emergency phone calls. So one of the things about government is usually everything that you can interact with in the government is on their webpage, which is a lot. And a lot of times it takes time to go through that webpage and find out exactly the information you need. So the easiest thing to do for someone is to just call and try and speak to somebody. So we leveraged AI and what's called Amazon Connect to answer the non-emergency phone calls first, ask them why they're calling, or maybe what is the question they might have that for the government. And then we build out the workflows that say if they call and ask about this, send them to this webpage. And how it does that is it first listens to what they're asking about, and then it will scrub the webpage for where that information is. And it will then talk back to them the information they're looking for, or it will say, can I text you this information? And usually that's what they want. They don't want a long conversation. Obviously, we don't want that long conversation because we have emergency calls to handle, but we found that it's really been successful for us because the information is already on the webpage, hard to find maybe. And this machine, this Amazon Connect, is scrubbing our webpage every time someone calls and asks for something or says, I want to report something. Usually there's a place to either report it or get that information. So it can speak back in their native language, over 170 languages. So that made it another benefit for the community as well. And then it will also text you the ability to get that information, go right to the webpage, or report the information right from the webpage.
Okay, so many questions. One, super cool. I was blown away yesterday when I was at your session. Continue to be blown away when I think about just the impact that this is already having and can continue to have. Yeah. One question that's maybe a little more narrow is just, it sounds like one of the kind of root cause or roots of the challenge is that there's so much information on the website, mm-hmm. and that's challenging to navigate to get that. I guess two questions related to that. One, is there an effort to sort of improve the website? But also, two, is there an effort to improve the website with AI? I know that different websites have AI chatbots or GPTs with all the information kind of plugged into that. What's going on in that department?
Well, I think just by the nature of what the government does, if you look at Manatee County government, 11 departments all handling things from tree removal, trash pickup to running water. So yes, I'm sure that everybody's webpage could be, finely tuned. It does have a search bar, but we're already talking about, when someone has a problem, usually, and this is not by any fault, but then it's an emergency for everybody. If a tree fell on their house or a tree's blocking a main roadway, that's an emergency for that person right then and there. And they want to talk to someone right away or be able to quickly get the information. So they might be out in the public or somewhere they're not sitting in front of a computer. So by nature, it's hard to find that information quickly. And that's where AI really shines. They're going to call the non-emergency number and it's going to say, I found that information for you. I can tell it to you, or I can text you the page and you can read it at your leisure on your cell phone. And what was the second part of the question?
If on the website, there's going to potentially be like a chat feature or a GPT sort of feature.
Yeah. I think that's coming. And each government is different. They're a little hesitant to get into that right away, but certainly that is in the pipeline, I would say. It will help you find the information if you're already on the web page as well. But I do think that that's another application for AI in the future, certainly.
So I'm thinking about also the difference between like machine learning and deep machine learning and like the training of your current system. Is the AI, right, I think if I'm boiling it down as well as I know, a key difference between machine learning and deep machine learning is that deep machine learning has the capacity to like train itself in a way. It's like it's learning, whereas machine learning, it's like you're building in an algorithm to help it learn or putting in certain information. So what does your system look like in between those two things?
Yeah. So the first iteration was more machine learning, and it's a very light form, or kind of treading on the trends of AI. But that machine learning is, if we want it to respond to somebody, let's say for snow removal. I know that we don't have that in Florida, but it's a big thing up north. Or my car got towed, so we have to build that out. And people might say snow removal. They might say snow, or it's snowing. What do I need to do? You have to get that machine to learn that a lot of people say it a lot of different ways. And when they do say this is the algorithm I want you to follow. That was the first iteration. We're now working on the second iteration, which is more of a chat bot. So it's going to process what you're asking for it. And then it's looking for keywords, all autonomously. So snow removal. The first thing you might say, it snowed a lot here. When are they coming to plow the street? That's a lot of words. And I might say it some different way, but we're all asking the same question. So it's looking for keywords, it's listening for keywords, and it's saying, okay, they're talking about snow removal. Let me go search the Arlington County website, find snow removal, and then process that to see if I think that's what they're asking about. So that this second generation is, we don't have to build out every algorithm for it. It's finding that information, it's learning itself. And we've narrowed its search to just Arlington County government's webpage, not lurking outside of that. Then that's, trying to cut down on what we call hallucinations or wrong answers. So we know that if it's finding the information on Arlington County government's website, that's the information we want you to get. So it's a much more faster process for us. We don't have to build out those algorithms for every single thing we want it to say and do. It's going to learn itself and use the Arlington County information to get the information quickly back to the caller.
It's incredible. Yeah, so I guess to answer my earlier question around like how it's evolving, this is how it's evolving.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
So what's been the impact?
Well, the impact we've seen with just the first iteration and just in towing, people trying to find where their car went, reduced about 30,000 calls in 6 months off of the center. We've since built that out for other things on the first iteration. So we're looking at around 100,000 calls off the center immediately. With this second iteration, because we don't have to build out those algorithms, we expect that to drop significantly. So it's been quite the success for us.
When you say reduced calls, are you saying reduce the length of them or eliminate them calling in the first place, or what do you specifically?
Well, both, actually. Okay. It does reduce their length. A human answering the call we went through the data and found it takes about 5 minutes for you to ask us something and us to either find it or whatever it may be. With Amazon, it's taking about 1.5 minutes for it to find the information and get that back to you, because it's 9 times out of 10 going to text you that information. You can just read it at your own leisure on your cell phone. So it is reducing the overall total number or time of the call as well, but it's reducing the actual call, never coming into the center. It's handling those calls before it even gets into the center.
Wow.
Yeah. So on average, we take around 300,000 to 400,000 non-emergency calls a year, and most certainly we're on par for it to reduce that down at least to half. But we expect that to continue.
Got it. Because the AI can handle it before it gets to a human.
Yep. Absolutely.
So are residents happy with this?
Not initially. It was because Amazon HQ2 was in Arlington, maybe Arlington's taking over, and, a lot of people have a lot of questions. They also thought maybe it's answering emergency calls, which is not the case. Emergency telecommunicator has to listen to a lot of different things going on a 911 call that, AI cannot replace, and I don't think ever will. They're listening to the background. They're listening to voice inflection. So it's just not an application that, goes on emergency calls. So it's just handling non-emergency calls. And once we got that out to the community, they were more comfortable with it. And then since it's been up and running, I think just about a year. We've found a lot of success, and we've gotten good feedback on it that they want it to handle more. So that second iteration, that second generation of it, I think will answer those questions too. So,
yeah. Well, congratulations on this. I mean, it's not a small. As I started from the beginning, it's not a small thing to have the LWRCC to engage in something like this in the first place, and then to go from idea to action to continued evolution. So,
right. Yeah. Thank you. It has been awesome.
Yeah. So if I'm somebody around the country who's listening to this, and I work for a local government, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to do this. How do I get started? What advice do you give them?
Well, if they want to learn more about that, they can, always contact me at Jake Saur, SAUR, arlingtonva.gov. Or they can, reach out to I would say do a Google search first. What is your problem? Maybe look in ChatGPT or Claude, say, what is my problem? What's some fixes? It'll give you some key bullet points, and then find somebody trying to get into that space, which I know sounds hard, but there is always startups and businesses looking to get into a space to solve your problem. You just have to find them.
Got it. So just get started.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a risk seeker, not a risk averse person. It's usually done me very well. So, just take the jump and see where it takes you.
Yeah. So in preparing for this conversation with you, I was looking at your background. You started off by saying that you were a paramedic for the first about 15 years of your career. I'm always curious about those original career experiences and how they've influenced your thinking and how you've approached things to this day. Mm-hmm. To what extent does that impact how you've approached this project or impacted your perspective at higher levels of government?
Yeah, well, I'm not a technology guru by any means. I do love it. I like to, work in that space. And a lot of times when we're initially starting a project, we have this thing and someone's trying to explain it to me. And, paramedics learn by doing. It's a very didactic field. So, the idea might sound great, but I don't understand it. And I won't understand it until I actually see it working. So, that's always been the case for me, probably even growing up, not before paramedic, and maybe why I went into paramedic is, you learn something and then you have to physically do it. And I just apply that to everything I do. I may not understand it. I got the concept, but I need to see it working in real life, and then I pick it up, and then we look for ways to build on that. So, I don't know if that really answers your question, but
well, it does to an extent in that you have a mindset of learning and learning by doing. Uh-huh. And I think especially with artificial intelligence and playing around with these new AI tools and agents, that takes a learner mindset.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
And it can be a little intimidating at first, and then it also is a skill, right? As you get to know working with ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other ones, the quality of your prompts or the way that you engage with it is going to impact the quality of your experience working with it. And so having that mindset of, I'm going to learn by doing, and I'm going to keep getting better, but I'm going to start is, I think what I'm hearing.
There was, yes, most certainly. And there was some great conversation, at the conference yesterday about garbage in, garbage out. Like, you have to learn the prompts for AI. And one of the things I always tell somebody is, if you're going to Google something, which if we all remember when Google was coming around, you were like, what? Google what? Nowadays, that's the first thing you do is you're Googling something to get information. AI, Claude, ChatGPT, and things like that is another skill you need to learn. So if you're going to Google something, I would say ask an AI agent first instead of Googling. See what you get and make that a compound question. So you Google something, read it, and then you want to learn more. In AI, Google that, but also try and build those questions so that you can get all the information all at once. So, I'm not going to be good at coming up with a question right off the top of my head, but compound questions for AI is much better. Get it all at once and then go from there. So if you're going to Google something, try an AI search first and see where it gets you.
And by a compound question, you mean like not like a 6-word search term like in Google. You're talking about like multi-sentence.
If you're gonna buy a car, what is the number one selling car in America? And then at the same time, what is the number one selling car in Florida? Will this car do well in my community of Sarasota, Florida? Let it work that and see what it comes up with.
Yeah, give it as much information as possible up front.
Yeah.
Thank you. So as we kind of close out our conversation today, I'm curious about your perspective, kind of bringing it back to the symposium over the last couple of days, and you're heading home, I think, tomorrow. What's a question that you're heading home with, or an action step you're heading home with?
Well, I think yesterday there was good conversations about security and AI and data information. I have some questions I'm going home with. First, what is the next step for AI and or technology coming down the pike that can assist my government or my public safety industry, and what safety do we need to further build upon with those? Yeah.
Terrific. Before we close out, anything else you want to highlight or share that you haven't shared so far?
I felt like for this community that the conference yesterday was amazing, and I hope that it continues its evolvement around technology and how it can assist both the government and the private partnership relationship. I think that this community really focuses on that, and that it's invaluable.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. Really, your session was terrific yesterday. Your work is making an impact, and it's an inspiration to other communities around the country. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Certainly.
Listeners, thanks for joining us beyond the blog.